New law passed that has to do with the PPP program, some huge changes. Stay tuned for just a few minutes to hear about what those changes are and how it affects you. On June 5th, the president signed the Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act. And basically what this law does is it takes a few parts of the PPP program and makes it easier for business owners to get their loans forgiven. Now, there are maybe a couple of caveats that I'll get to, but overall it does make it easier to get your loans forgiven, and I will walk you through exactly how that is. Now, in the program right now, there are 8 weeks that you have to spend the funds that you get under the PPP program for those funds to be forgiven, for the loan to be forgiven, so long as you follow certain rules that we've talked about a lot. What the new law does is changes that 8-week window to a 24-week period. So now you have 3 times as long to be able to spend the money. The only problem is the amount of money hasn't increased. So you're still getting 2.5 times your payroll, and 2.5 months of your payroll, and 8 weeks is about 2 months-ish. So that's another half month. It's not like you really have 24 weeks to spend it. It was 24 weeks. That's like 6 months-ish. So yeah, it helps, but it's not like it's a huge. It would help if there was more money, but there's just a longer covered period. Now, the other piece of good news with this is that if you have already meticulously planned using an 8-week period, you can keep the 8-week period. If you like your 8-week period, you can keep your 8-week period. So that's good news. Point number 2, the 75-25 rule is now the 60-40 rule. So originally in the text of the CARES Act, when they invented the PPP program, there was no 75-25 rule. The SBA invented that and made it up. And what that rule says is that 75% of the funds must be spent on payroll, 25% must be spent on utilities, rent, or mortgage interest. And what the Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act does is it takes that number and it makes it 60-40 instead of 75-25, and it does it by statute. So the SBA can't change it. It is what it is. It's in the law. Number 3, there is now a new safe harbor. So one of the huge parts of the PPP law that was going to make it practical for people to get their loans forgiven was that so long as you bring your full-time equivalents up to the same number as it was in the comparison period, by June 30th, it's treated as if you had done that the whole time. And that's important because if you don't have the appropriate amount of FTEs during the 8-week period, then your loan forgiveness can be reduced. The SBA could change that with the rules, and they'll be issuing rules on this soon. Certainly we'll keep you updated when I find out, but as of right now, the June 30th safe harbor is totally gone. There's a new rule in its place. Part 1, if you're not able to rehire your employees or employees that are similarly qualified by December 31st, then you're treated as if you had and you get loan forgiveness. The second part, and this is the part that I'm by far the most interested in for my businesses and for my clients' businesses, is the part that has to do with not having the same amount of business activity by December 31st. What does it say exactly? If the business is unable to return to the level of business activity that it was at on February 15th, 2020 by December 31st, 2020, then they get loan forgiveness and they fall under the safe harbor exemption. What is business activity? Presumably it means sales. Does it mean the need for labor? What if you're in an industry that doesn't have I don't know, certainly in the restaurant industry, if there's more sales, you're going to need more labor. But there may be some industries where the labor isn't necessarily completely correlated to sales. How would it affect them? I'm sure the SBA is going to define this rule, and how they define this rule is going to be really important because there's so many loaded words in that law. So we'll see what the SBA does on this one. This is really the headline for me. How are they going to handle the unable to return to the same level of business activity exemption safe harbor? Finally, I've got some potentially good news. It's not real yet, but there have been so many changes to the PPP. It's been a whole thing. Look, I've been here following it the whole time. It's been a thing. But there may be another change coming down the pike. Allegedly, bank lobbyists are pushing for all loans under $150,000 to be automatically treated as grants because it's administratively burdensome for the bank to do it, and the banks they're not making that much money on these loans. So, hey, let's get out there and cheer for those banking lobbyists, right, guys? But that would be great if they made it such that all loans under $150,000 were fully forgivable. Let's hope they do. Go bank lobbyists. Thanks for watching The CEO Attorney. I always think this is going to be the last PPP segment that I do, and there always ends up being another one. And I'm sure there will be another one. See you next time.